Hello and welcome to Wise Up with Open Water, your regular dose of wisdom from the open water community. I'm your host, Ken Pasternak. I'm an Open Water founding member as well as a contributor. And I'm happy to welcome Sharon Schanzer to today's episode, during which we'll be talking about relationship building, business development, and why execution is often the real differentiator in business. Sharon is the founder of What's Your Boulder, the implementation studio, where she helps turn complex ideas and stalled initiatives into finished results. Her tagline says it all: consider it done. With more than 25 years of experience spanning technology, business, and design, from KPMG to Condé Nast, and to leading her own long-running design firm, RLD Group, Sharon has built a reputation for helping businesses move from strategy to execution with clarity and speed. She's also an ASTIA advisor, supporting women-founded and women-led companies pursuing seed and Series A funding. Beside her consulting work, Sharon is a true community builder and superconnector, leading the New York chapter of Women of Open Water and several other thriving networking and interest communities around New York City. Sharon, that's quite an introduction. Welcome, and thank you for joining me.
I'm tired. I'm glad it's a Friday. Just listen.
You do a
Okay.
lot.
Yeah. Well, that's
You
my
know,
nature.
Sharon, I'd really love to start with this idea of being a superconnector because it's a
Right.
fascinating term. It can sound a little inspiring to some and maybe a little intimidating depending on who's hearing it. And you've said that real networking isn't really a social activity, it's a strategic one. I'd love to hear what superconnector means to you.
To me, being a super connector is really about being at the center of everyone's universe, but not in a sort of manipulative way. So, being a super connector comes with responsibility because people always say, "Oh, ask Sharon, she'll know."
Mm.
And sometimes I'm like, "Please, no more questions." Like, but also, it means that I have great resources. My clients or future clients or prospects or friends or whomever know that they can come to me and ask, do you know such and such a person who does such and such a thing? And in exchange, I'm also always giving referrals. And so it's helped me, build my business. I also really I mean, it's genuinely my nature to help people. So it would be weird for me not to be a super connector. I think it would be against my nature to sort of not know a lot of people, not know how to help people. When I see somebody needing something, whether it's, a person on the street or a business connection, I really, my brain already goes into sort of hyperdrive. How can I help this person? And if I have a giant network or relatively giant network, I haven't hit the LinkedIn cap yet. Apparently, there's some sort of LinkedIn cap where you can no longer make connections. That's my life's goal.
Okay.
I'm not even anywhere near it now. It's like 300,000
Oh my
connections,
goodness.
saying like that. Yeah, but anyway, so for me, it's a superpower to be a super connector, and I like all my superpowers. I wear them proudly. My superpower capes, I wear them proudly. So
Yeah, I was thinking about that phrase, with great power comes great responsibility, or whatever that phrase exactly is. And I
mhm.
feel that. And you mentioned the word responsibility as being this resource. I'm wondering about, starting these relationships that you have, because in a group like Open Water, there's a lot of people looking to reach out and meet new people, but sometimes it can feel like you're working other people, like, you've got an angle. How do you build those meaningful relationships without that taking place?
I mean, I think some of that comes from the person's personality. So you have to be, I'm pretty subtle. Not that people, of course, everyone's going to hear this and know I'm, looking for them, looking for context. But on the other hand, it just comes with being tactical, tactful about your requests, not, badgering people,
Mm.
being mindful about who you request things of, and making sure that also you appreciate their request, whether it's with a thank you note, whether it's, reciprocating. It's not transactional. I want to be very clear. Like, being a super connector is absolutely not transactional. It would be impossible to be
Mm.
making transactional. I could not possibly return or get, there's no way to make it an equal relationship. It's just there's only one of me and there's 10,000 of everybody else, right?
Mhm.
So for me, I'm not going to use this word like very non-literally. It's karma. And so the more genuine you are, like, I genuinely want to help people, which also gets me in trouble all the time because there's only 24 hours in every day. And I could spend like all of my free time sort of helping everyone. So I try to do it, I try to make sure I'm helping people that appreciate my help, that will, theoretically reciprocate. Again, it's not transactional, so it cannot be. So, it's just a matter of, asking kindly, reciprocating when possible, and also making sure that you respect the time of the people who you're giving referrals to, asking referrals of. And if you say you're going to do something for someone, you do it. So, for instance, if I give someone a referral, because someone else has asked for a referral, I expect them to follow up on it. And if they don't follow up on it, then they're not going to be the person I'm going to give a referral to the next time, because
Mm.
that's breaking the chain and
Yeah.
also makes me look bad with the person who asked me like for a bookkeeper or something. Like the bookkeeper I referred to that person, see that's a random example, doesn't follow up, then makes me look bad.
Mm.
And with my either my client or my friend or the person I met on the street who's looking for a bookkeeper. So yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is you use the word karma, which I think is really fitting. It's a value exchange, right?
Mhm.
It's not about the numbers. It could be three, it could be 300,000, but it's really more about what sort of value are you providing to your connections, and what value are they providing back to you or other connections that you happen to know. I think that really makes sense. I'd love to hear a little bit about how relationships and community building have helped shape your own career trajectory.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know how anyone could sort of manage to build a business without building community and without building relationships. So for me, it's whether it's an informal group, like you mentioned earlier, that I run these groups. So I run a mahjong club
Oh,
in New York City, and I do it because I like to play. I have to play Chinese mahjong, which is a little unusual. So it's a lot of work to get a club like that going. Everyone mostly plays American mahjong. But for me, it's fun, but it's also a way to meet people. And when I meet people, then they might refer me. It is never the reason I started this club. I was on when my son was younger, I was on all the PTAs of his school. Again, a way to get involved, understand the inner workings of his school, but also potentially get referrals. And I definitely got clients through that. So for me, it's a part of what I like to do it. I'm not going, oh my God, I have to go to the PTA meeting, or oh my God, I have to go to mahjong. Like I enjoy those things. So a lot of people may not enjoy all these activities, but it's super important. And I've had career pivots. The Astia thing is a perfect example. So you mentioned earlier, I'm an Astia, or it's astia.org. I'm an advisor. So they're a VC fund that funds only women-led and women-founded companies. So not surprisingly, I'm very passionate about women being able to get funding. It's shockingly difficult in 2026. Beyond, I went to a pitch event recently and there were five people pitching, four men, one woman. It's still
mm,
2026. Like, why couldn't they find two women and three
yeah.
men to pitch, right? So it's no joke how hard it is for women to get funded. And so Astia has this program where anyone can basically apply to get funding. Doesn't matter where you are, who you know, et cetera. You just have to be women led or women founded. But anyway, I found out about Astia through an event and through a connection I had. So that has been, really transformational for me because first of all, I love their mission. I have no money, no skin in the game. It's literally something I do because I want women to be able to learn about their organization and to get funded. So my role is to scout the companies and then also to help vet the companies. That's one of the roles of an Astia advisor. And on top of which, for me, like I really want to be introduced to more people who are VCs and LPs and things like that who have resources to hire me for my company. And through that, through becoming an ASTI advisor, I'm able to now kind of sit at the table with other VCs. I don't have money to become a VC. I mean, not obviously I don't, but it's allowing me to kind of get my foot in the door. And now I'm waiting to hear if I'm going to be a scout for another VC fund, which is not women led. So these things all interconnect. And I met somebody who told me, "Oh, have you heard of ASTI?" I was like, "No, I never heard of them. This is like January or something
Mm,
recently." So I pursued it. I met them. They said, sure, you could be an advisor. I went through the interview process, and now it's been a really pivotal career point for me I'm really interested in what they're doing, like I said, but also from a personal and sort of perspective, not just because I want to help people, but it is going to absolutely help me in my career moving forward and getting into it's very hard to get involved with VCs and LPs and other people like that unless you're one of them. And they're all men
mm,
predominantly. So that makes it even more hard, more difficult as a woman. But also they're just not, they don't have like open events for VCs. It's not
yeah.
open door policy. You
Yeah.
have to be one of them. So
Hmm.
now I'm effectively one of them and I went to a dinner last Friday, which I was invited to, private dinner at a private club because I'm an ASTIA advisor. It was not for ASTIA, it was just people who fit a particular profile. Through that, I met someone, very high level person who I think, hopefully, knock wood, will become my client. I'm having a call with her on Monday. So, all these things, you just have to be out there, and it interferes with my ability to do work, by the way. Like all these things take up time in my day. Whether it's scouting for ASTIA or filling out the or going to these events and stuff like that. But it's super interesting, first of all, and secondly, with an end goal, which is to, to be blunt, it's the end goal is to get clients. Like that's
Yeah.
what everyone's end goal is, whether it's to get a job or to get a client. That's why we're here, right? Otherwise, it'd
Yeah.
be on a beach in Bali somewhere. It's like sipping a mai
Yeah.
tai. So.
I'm very interested in pursuing that topic with you in just a minute. But first, I have to say the fact that you can play Chinese mahjong and also meet people and learn things about them is quite impressive. I have taken one American mahjong lesson and I was concentrating so hard on my tiles and my board and what score I could possibly put together.
Right.
I didn't even know who was sitting next to me and it was my
Well,
partner. So
American
congrats
mahjong
for
is
that.
much more difficult. So
Is
if you
it?
want to
Oh,
have more,
okay.
yeah, much more, not much more difficult, more complex. It's not
Okay.
necessarily more difficult. So we play what's called chicken, which is sort of basic Chinese mahjong with no scoring. And now we're learning to do scoring. And you do have to pay attention, but not the same way as an American. So that's one of
Okay.
the things I actually like about it, is it's just more relaxing without all
Well,
the tension, like
that
meeting
makes
your
me
card
feel a little
once.
better. Yeah. So it sounds like, this idea of connection, introducing people to each other can create tremendous opportunity and tremendous value for the women that you mentioned who have not
Mhm.
had that access before and for yourself in getting you into this community. So I really appreciate you sharing those examples. I think that's really important for our community here. The other thing, though, I wanted to follow up on is this idea of business development, which you said it's hard to find time for. And you've said in previous conversations, business development is your job now. I
Absolutely.
very honest, very refreshing. But why do so many founders or independent operators resist business development or what they might call sales?
I think, and when I was thinking about our conversation in advance of it, I was thinking, I think it's because those of us who do it well make it look really easy, and it's not. Like
Uh-huh.
I am both tired from literally being out like 3 or 4 nights a week because I have a quote unquote day job, which is to do the work that I'm hired to do. And also you have to be talkative. If you just go to an event, talk to anybody, you're just wasting your time. You have to be home or drinking your mai tai in Bali, right? So
Mm,
it's a lot of work. It's work to make the connections. It's work to find the events. It's work to go to the events or whatever, methodology you use. It's work to have calls with people. It's work to follow up, and you have to follow up effectively. So if you make 100 connections and you do zero follow up, then you've also wasted your time. So
yeah.
it's a full-time occupation. So a lot of people, I mean, I would say the vast majority of people don't like to do it. And in the olden days, people didn't have to do that. People were not entrepreneurs at the level that we have entrepreneurship or solo entrepreneurship now. You had your job and you had a person who was sold for your company, your insurance or your whatever they were selling, and they handed you work. But of course, if you become an entrepreneur, even if it's like for something simple, or you own a restaurant or you own a mahjong parlor, you still have to get clients to come to your event. I mean, I have to spend time getting people to come to my mahjong events. And it's not like it doesn't take zero time, even though the community is pretty organized. I have to post on Instagram, I have to put, everything together, etc. So it just takes time, and I just don't think everybody necessarily knows that going into it. I sort of feel the same way about job seekers. I think people are passive and they expect that people are going to be thinking about them all the time.
Mm,
And I do think about some people all the time, but I don't get, people aren't like constantly sending me referrals. I have
hmm
to follow up on every single opportunity. And the same way as if you're looking for a job, while I may have, let's say, just a random number, I have 10 people in my sort of inner circle that I know are looking for jobs or opportunities. I can't possibly be thinking about them all the time because I'm thinking about my own needs all the time, right?
Yeah.
So if they're responsible, I tell people who I do some coaching for people who are looking for jobs, whether it's working on their resumes or betting, looking at their LinkedIn. I've done a bunch of recruiting. I'm like, it's your job to make this happen for yourself. You need to
Mm,
go out and talk to every single person that will sit still long enough to listen about what you're looking for. And then if that person does have anything, it's just same. It's exactly the same thing. It's business development. You are the product if you're looking for a job. And if you have a company, you are the company. And I think it's just really hard. And people want to do the fun stuff. Like if you're a bookkeeper or an accountant, you didn't go to school to do business development. You went to school to become a CPA. That's probably fun.
right.
For me, it doesn't sound like fun,
Yeah.
being a CPA, but obviously people enjoy it. And that's like,
Right.
of course, I'd rather be doing the fun stuff too, like doing the implementation or doing the design work. That's way more fun. Although I do like going to these events and meeting people, it's not a problem. But the follow-ups takes time, it's
Yeah.
tiresome, and you have to keep on. I have a very specific sort of technique, mostly in my head, about keeping the loop closed and making sure you're following up all the time. Not everybody has a head for that,
Mm,
and then you have to have a CRM and you have to have, whatever, asking people for things. So anyway, the point is ask for what you need, no matter what it is in your life, I think in general, but also especially in business. So if you don't
Yeah.
ask, you don't get. Nobody is thinking about anything but themselves
Hmm.
100% of the time. I am not thinking about anything but myself 24/7, or myself and my son, basically, right? So
Yeah.
if you need something from me, you have to come to me and tell me that you need something and then follow through, just like if I'm the prospect in this scenario. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's good to remember. It's often easy to take it personally if you don't hear from somebody, but in reality, they're just so busy. They're doing their own thing. They're thinking about themselves and their own needs, and unless you put yourself in front of them, they're not going to see you. I,
100%.
I'm reminded also of a conference that I listened in on one time. There was a poet who was presenting, and he was reading I think it was an actual poem that he had written, and the two lines from the poem that I remember were, "Take the first step, the one you don't want to take."
Hmm.
And he repeated that over and over and over again. And we're like, yeah, we get it. But the reality is it takes a mindset shift, doesn't it, to actually take that step you don't want to take, whether that's
Okay.
meeting someone in the first place or the follow-up, whichever one it is that's the obstacle. You need to will yourself or perhaps, reward yourself for taking that step. And then maybe it gets easier.
I mean, for me, I could do without like going out all the time and doing networking. That part is like physically it's
Uh-huh.
tiresome, but
Yeah.
I do love doing business development. So maybe I'm lucky that way, but I really love the close. Like there is
Ah,
nothing. If I could do nothing, if I could actually like start my career all over again and I could make $1 billion, I would just do sales because I am so happy when I close. Like, I have a friend who also feels the same way, and we'll like call each other. We got a new client. Like it's, and then of course you have to do the work.
right.
Now I have to do the, but there's just so if you make it into like I don't know if a game is the right word, but for me, having worked, whether it's something that comes super easily, sometimes projects just land in my lap, and that's not as rewarding in terms of a close as projects I have a client that I've been a prospective client I've been pursuing for years. And it's not even that interesting a project. And I personally don't even think they'd be a great client. They sort of seem kind of difficult, but I am determined to get that client if it's the last thing I do because I need that close. I have a pretty high close rate, so it's unusual, but I am just now I have them in my teeth. I want that close. And it
Yeah.
is so fun. And you could reward yourself, for the close if you want, like buy yourself a, whatever, an ice cream cone or something like that. But it's just for me, I don't say it's a game because that it's definitely not a game. It's very serious, obviously, to have clients, but it is, if you look to the end, like, wow, it'll be so amazing when I finally make that connection, even if it's a tiny, like for me, I'm not necessarily only interested in big fish. If I get a small opportunity with someone and they see what it's like to work with me, oftentimes it'll grow into bigger opportunities. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. It can be just a new client on the books. We are working together now, and I'm so happy. So.
That's great. That's great. I'm reminded now of a different speech, which was Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross, when he says, "Always be closing."
Always be closing. Well, my book that I've never written, that is my boulder, is called Always Be Connecting, and based on the
Aha.
Always Be Closing thing. So that's kind of the secret sauce, is that you have to always be connecting. And just as like a sidebar to that, always be connecting does not mean like linking in with people. It started that concept came to me many years ago when LinkedIn was sort of all that people like younger people were doing sales. Oh, I'm LinkedIn with you. Now we're connected. I'm like, absolutely not. It's
Mm,
so much more than that. You need to know like their kids' names, their dog's name. You need to take them out to lunch. And these things sound fake, but that is how people do business development, develop relationships with people, because then they will think of you like, oh, that person, we had this great conversation about the dog or whatever. And then always, and then follow up on every single thing. Never let the circle finish. I mean, close when someone writes to you, write back right away. When someone
mm.
emails you or when someone calls you, return their call right away. Always be connecting because those are the real relationships that will bear fruit. So always be closing is the end game. Thanks to Glenn Ross, but always be connecting is the process
Yeah.
that I
I love
employ.
that.
I'm
And
really, really strict about it.
what that tells me is that, it's one thing to have connections, it's another thing is to have a robust and sustainable pipeline.
Yeah.
And one is sowing the seeds, but the other is making sure they get watered and nurtured
Yeah. It's
and
harder.
spoken
I
to.
mean, yeah, it's hard to but building your pipeline and maintaining your current existing pipeline are two things that are at odds with each other, but they're also equally important. So I wouldn't say I'm not like the model citizen when it comes to having this like fabulous pipeline at any time, like anything might come true because I'm just one person. I can only do like so many things. So I'm probably more focused on nurturing new relationships than I am or than I should be, by the way, on nurturing existing relationships, but that's why I try to get involved sort of deeply in things that I do, like in open water, where I'm helping to run the NYC, Women of Open Water NYC, because then I'll be top of mind. So those people who I'm working with are, besides the fact that I really think it's a great idea, of course, and I want the Women of Open Water NYC to exist, those people are effectively in my pipeline. They'll know who I am when an opportunity comes up. So for me, it's about sort of staying connected with everyone. I used to do a newsletter pretty frequently, and then LinkedIn many years ago got purchased by Microsoft, and they no
Mhm.
longer allow you to download the emails for people,
Mm.
therefore breaking my whole like kind of system that I had. So I'm actually working on reinvigorating my CRM that I don't really take good care of because I have not enough hours in the day. But some of it is just I had yesterday, for example, I had a coffee or whatever in the afternoon with a client who's been my client for 5 years, and we've never met in person. He lives in Manhattan. I live in Manhattan, and we
Wow.
never met in person. And he's a great guy. I mean, I know from meeting working with him online. He's a very good client. He's a super nice guy. He's super interesting what he does. Really unique sustainability practice that he has. And so last time we spoke, I was like, we should get together for coffee. He's like, of course. So we met. We spent 2 hours talking, about some personal stuff, but ultimately it will definitely lead to opportunities that I wouldn't have had with him before because we just had this casual time that wasn't talking about like fixing his website, which is typically, what we're talking about. I'm going to introduce him to my nephew who is interested in what he's doing, and he sent me a link to, I'm interested in doing a TED Talk. He's done TED Talks, so he's helping TEDx talks. So he's been advising since yesterday. He's like, I'll tell you all about it. So this morning he sent me all his information about how he kind of, nagged the TEDx people until I gave him a TED Talk. And once you get one, you get others and things like that. So that's he's not a new contact for me. I've known him, like I said, for years, but we'd never met in person. And talking casually via Zoom or even on the phone is not the same as sitting and having, like, we just sat outside on a little table in Union Square and just chit chatted for a couple hours. And it'll definitely, lead to other opportunities for both of us because I have opportunities for him. He's a coach and a bunch of other things as well. So yeah.
That's great. I'd love to switch the topic just a little bit here, go from connection to what happens once that connection's been successful and the work has also been successful, which is execution. So you've named your company What's Your Boulder? And you have this tagline, consider it done. I mean, that's a real execution orientation right there. I'm wondering, what are some of the common boulders that you are seeing with business owners or leaders and why are those boulders there? What is the challenge to execution these days?
I think, not I think. I actually swore I would never say the words I think again because women always say that. So I'm not saying I think. I know, because that's what I do for a living,
There we go.
that generating ideas, just like creating a business, and is much easier than actually running a business or doing business development. So everybody's brain, everybody who's educated or creative or whatever, can sum up a million ideas. I mean, summon a million ideas.
Hmm.
Executing them, much harder.
Mm.
So I am the first to say, like, I have a gazillion boulders. Everybody has them. There's no question in your personal life. If you don't, then you're not like living a true, if you don't think you have boulders, then you are not living a true life because clearly, whether it's like your closets are not organized or, whatever it is, everybody has boulders. So the problem is that people get caught up in their day to day of whether their closets are not a priority, or in the case of work, most people have actual jobs that they have to do. And that job doesn't usually involve this big project, this big boulder that's sort of sitting there weighing on them. So an example is a client of mine who is a private bank. And I work with the marketing team. So in the bank, they have like 30 people on the marketing team. It's a pretty substantial number of people, all busy all the time, like working late into the night, working on the weekends, et cetera. Really, even though they keep on adding headcount, they never have enough people. So then projects come up, and these people are A, super busy doing their actual job, and B, in a corporate setting, very siloed. So they don't have cross-disciplinary or interdisciplinary expertise, which I have as a generalist, which is my other superpower besides being a super connector. So they need somebody who can come in who's not engaged in an existing project, who's like, of course, I have, as far as my clients are concerned, 40 hours in every week to give to them. Now, of course, that's not true. I partition that time amongst other things, but for them, they can just say, do this. They don't have to say, I'm going to take you off this other project because I need you to do this other thing. So that's a very typical scenario where I have expertise. I happen to have been, done a lot of marketing. My background, as you mentioned, is design and technology. So a lot of times in the case of this bank, I'll do projects that deal with technology and design. So one project I did was converting reporting that I had done for them previously as a print project that they give to their clients as a private bank, converting it to being done in Salesforce. I wasn't actually doing the Salesforce work, but I was the person who was communicating the needs of the marketing team to the Salesforce team. So I was literally working, in-house. I had a little desk there. I would go to all the meetings and I would say, this is what the client needs. And basically do it, most importantly, sort of autonomously without having to go back to my client as a VP of marketing all the time and ask her, like, what do you need? What do you need? I can figure it out on my own because of my background, having, in this case, worked on these projects, the print project earlier, and also happen to know Salesforce. And then I can also I have this knack for being able to work with people along all sorts of disciplines. So I can go and work with this. People are not afraid to send me to work with the CEO, make a fool out of myself. And also I can go, when projects I work with them, sometimes I have to go in the mailroom and deal with the mailroom people. And I talk to them equally as comfortably as I do with the people, at the C-suite. So that's one example. Another example that comes up a lot, which is related to the sort of business development thing, is people say, hey, I joke of like the old time movies like Liza Minnelli or, those old movies, people would say, hey, let's put on a show. That's what I
Yeah.
think. That's when I started my first company. I was 25 years old. I was like, hey, let's put on a show. Like, you have no idea, even if you're not 25, which I happened to, or even younger at the time, no idea what it took to start a company. It looks so easy, right? You just start a company. Like, you can be Meta, you can be Apple. That's easy, right? Of course, it's nothing of the sort. Even now, where the technology is completely, this was like a gazillion years ago. There was no technology of any kind like we have now. There are a lot of things that you can do now that you couldn't have done then, but it's very, very, very hard. So people have great ideas, but they have no understanding of what it takes to actually start, run, develop, even idea. I've even like fully flesh out the idea for a business. So I have a lot of people that are sort of ex-corporate who have come from, I have a client I'm working with now, hopefully comes from Meta. She's worked at Meta for a long time and she has this great like proprietary tool that she wants to work on, but that's all she knows. She knows she has a great idea. She has a great pedigree. She has, obviously comes from a very well-known company, whatever your opinions are or not of Meta.
Hmm.
And that's all. That's as far as she's gotten. She's like, I don't know what to do next, So the idea is that I come with an entire basic sort of like business in a box is another sort of way to look at it. I'm able to help her with pretty much everything. And then what things I can't help her with, which is another way that I use my superconnector superpower, is I will find the people. Like I am not an expertise, I have no real deep expertise in finance. So if
Mm.
her company were to grow and she needs a CFO, I am definitely not that person. But obviously I know, even through open water, tons of people can be fractional or
Mm.
CFO type people, for example. So
Yeah. Well, what
those
I'm
are two.
hearing from you is that there are two key things. One is, the boulders can be hard to recognize or move from within, that bringing an outsider can be really powerful, but especially someone who is more of a generalist, not a specialist, which is
Yeah.
interesting in today's increasingly specialized world, that having somebody who has, like you, expertise across a lot of different domains can really pay off. Either
Right.
that, or they've got the network, as you do, to tap into to just make things happen, and allow the other person, the idea person or the business runner, to keep doing what they do well. Um, that's a real value, I would say, or I would think.
And you can't just become a generalist. And I don't even like that term. It's a little flat, but
Uh-huh.
that is sort of the current term. And actually, I've just recently, I think I mentioned, joined like two generalist clubs, for lack of a better word, because I'm so happy to have found my people. It's really lonely being a
Mm.
generalist because people
Mm.
think you're a freak.
Huh.
Like, how do you know all those things? I'm like, I don't know. I just like, how do you know like how to what your name is or how to put your shoes on? You just not everything is explainable. It's just how my brain works. It's also I learned recently like there's a T-shaped generalist. So there's like a person like myself, and I actually call myself a pie-shaped generalist because I know a lot about a little, across the horizontal plane, and then marketing. I mean, sorry, tech and design. So that's where the pie, like that pie symbol, which is
Mm.
T, just one thing. But that doesn't mean that there isn't great value in being a specialist. And I purposely don't call myself a fractional anything because to me, fractional comes with sort of specialization, and that is
Mm.
not my thing. But
Hmm.
I am so happy that now, in 2026, finally, there's literally so far two groups, and whenever I listen to the people talking, like both of the people who run these organizations were recently on the Startups Decoded podcast of Andy Walsh, and they both said the same thing. It's so nice not to have to be put in a box because that's
Yeah.
how it feels when you're a generalist and people try to put you in a box. It's very disorienting.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, it was a handicap. Like if you try to get a job as a generalist, but I actually saw a job posting the other day for a generalist. And I was like, oh my God, it's the greatest thing I've ever
Interesting.
seen. I actually posted about it on LinkedIn. I was so excited that they were posting. So currently it's sort of like a chief of staff has taken the role of a generalist and packaged it in a corporate setting. And I would
Mm.
probably wear, if I had stayed and taken a corporate path in my career, I probably would be a chief of staff. But so it's being, it's a really valuable skill now, but it wasn't for a long time.
Yeah.
So
It's
I'm
very
so happy you
helpful,
found my
actually.
people. Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt you there. It's
that's
very
okay.
helpful to think in terms of a chief of staff, actually. That really puts it into a person. That puts it into a perspective. And a chief of staff is not what you would think of as one-dimensional or shallow. They're actually multifaceted. They're multi-talented, right? They've got the
Right.
political skills, the networking skills, the business skills, the communication skills, all the things that they're going to need to keep a team of people together and operating at a high level. So I really love that example. I think that really brings it into focus.
And it's a new
Um,
title. It didn't exist. I mean, people were COOs before, but that's more operational. I mean, there's nothing wrong with obviously anything people want to do for a living is fine, but COO to me always felt very much operational, like in the weeds of running the business, where
mhm.
chief of staff is more kind of elevated above that, or not above that, but working side by side with the CEO and kind of executing the busy CEO's vision, and keeping everything together. So it's a new title, and it's exploded because there are a lot of other people apparently like me. I didn't know that. I'm really happy, like I said, but the generalist thing, I'm still like, you can see how happy I am when I talk about seeing that generalist job posting.
Well, what also strikes me, Sharon, is that demand for uh, not just acquiring but retaining high-level executives, it's getting harder and harder, right? People move around, and if you had a really capable chief of staff to kind of hold the team together and help the team feel like a team, I would imagine that would have some impact on retention, not just
Absolutely. I think
performance,
people
but
are considering
retention.
it. I think it's considered an essential position now. I mean, there's so many postings for it. I don't have any statistics, but it was something I don't want to like give us, it only started like February of 2025. I don't know that for a fact, but
Hmm.
for sure it is now. There's chief of staff, there's Ask a Chief of Staff, there's all sorts of organizations around being chiefs of staff. And it is really just another term for a generalist. It just means that you're working for one company and you can certainly be a fractional chief of staff, but I think that's not necessarily successful because you really need to be like, in the weeds with the company. So I think, people are probably hiring full-time uh, chiefs of staff more than they would other fractional positions. But no, it's great. And I'm sure it helps the company, as you said, to keep everything kind of like moving forward and just one person, because the CEO is not, they don't really, not really, they don't care, but the CEO is like above that. They're just making the company profitable, just as I say in air quotes, and so on. Everyone has these siloed positions, and then the chief of staff has the vision for how to make sure everyone's working in, glorious harmony. So
Yeah, yeah, not just for the White House anymore.
no, it's definitely a political term, but it's
Yeah.
definitely not for the White House for sure.
This is
Yeah.
really fascinating stuff. And we're coming to the end of our time, believe it or not. We've talked about connections, we've talked about business development, we've talked about execution and effectiveness, and now being a generalist. I'd love to hear if you have a couple of thoughts that you'd like to leave our listeners with, two or three key ideas. What would those be?
Well, always be connecting would be certainly my main one. I really, really, really feel strongly about that, and I will write my book one day. It is my one of my boulders. I have the outline. That's not enough,
Hmm.
And also, another thing that we didn't really talk about, but I feel really strongly about, is this idea of friction free and how, as a human being, but also as an employer, employee, and mostly as an entrepreneur, which is, my focus is you really need to make everything friction free for all the people around you. So for me, that very specifically will mean, for example, if a client prefers to text me as their method of communication, while it isn't preferable for me, I think it's harder to keep track of. It's obviously disruptive to be, messaged throughout the day. That for me is how I will communicate with that client because that is friction free for them. Like to say to a client, I don't accept whatever changes or messages through, WhatsApp, Signal, it doesn't matter. That's how they have to come. I'm there to serve. So I really feel like it's so important to be thinking about making everything as simple as possible. Another example, for instance, in my design practice, I will take files from people in any format using whatever method they want to send it to me. It's my responsibility to take that information from them, not to say, you need to send it to me this way in this format or this size. They won't do it. It's like a fruitless task anyway. So in general, I like to keep things kind of simple. When I'm planning things, I don't need to look at 1,000 different options. You have to trust your instinct and just kind of keep things moving. And really just, for me, my whole entire life is about trying to be as friction free as possible. So that's my other nugget of wisdom.
I love it. Always be
Relate,
connecting and friction
yeah.
free.
One other friction free, I try to put this in every time I do a podcast. Here's my friction free tip of the day. Okay, it's not
Great.
obvious. Put your email address in your email signature. Why, you ask? If it's in the top of the email? Well, if I'm referring you to somebody else and it says your name, your website, your phone number, your tagline, but not your email address, then I have to copy and paste your email address from the email little window, above your wherever it is, depending on your program that you're using, and then plop that into the signature and then send that. That's 2 steps instead of one. Multiply that by the number of referrals and connections that I'm making, which is infinite. It's annoying. It doesn't mean I
Mm,
don't do it, but there are times where I'm like, I just can't be bothered. And there are other times where I will still do it because I'm actually trying to help the person who asked for the referral. So you will see my signature. I have every bit of information you could possibly need about me, all of my contact info, including my email address. And I'm telling you, everyone's like, that's so silly. Why would you need that? I'm telling you, because it's much more friction free for me to give referrals to you. If I write to you, or whatever, everything that you do should be in service of the person who's requesting information from you or helping you out. You should not make it ever difficult for the person to help you, whether it's giving you a referral or finding a place to have lunch. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple.
wonderful.
Yeah.
A simple but powerful tip, spoken like a true connector. So you've built an amazing network, a huge community presence over the years. What can the open water community do for you, Sharon?
Referrals, obviously.
Hmm.
I'm happy to, this is sort of a related friction-free thing. Like I have a pretty strong, a big, important philosophy, which is that I don't expect people to sell for me. That's too complicated. Even for my design business, which is pretty simple, like what I'm selling is widgets, but in the What's Your Boulder business, that's a consultative selling. It requires nuance. It requires understanding what the person's boulder, etc. There's literally no way anyone could sell for me. So if there's an opportunity that someone thinks is interesting, just toss it my way. I will take care of determining whether it's, and even in my design business, people say, do you do this? I'm like, don't worry about whether I do that. Just send me the referral. I will figure out if I can help the client. And in which case, if I can't, then I always will find someone else who can. I will never just say no. I will never just, not intentionally, of course, I'm a human, but I will never drop the ball. I will never say, this is stupid, I can't do that. I will always try to find a solution for whatever referrals, for whatever part of my business come my way. So just send
Great.
the referrals. I'll take care of everything. You don't have to overthink it. This is an
So,
opportunity, might be good for you. Meet this person. That's all I need.
so Sharon, if open water members want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
So the best way is by carrier pigeon, WhatsApp, Signal, etc., email, and so forth. But if you actually want to use email, it's Sharon@whatsyourboulder.com. My website is whatsyourboulder.com. Very proud to have obtained that URL. It was a big, big win for me. Or Sharon@RLD Group, which is where my design business lives. And I'm also very active on LinkedIn. You can DM me on LinkedIn. Whatever is easiest for you is how you can get in touch with me. That's what works. So works
That's
for you, works
great.
for me.
Friction free. I
Yeah.
love it.
Friction free,
Um,
exactly.
well, Sharon, this has been fantastic. As you noted earlier, it's a Friday, so I'm wishing you a very happy weekend and very much
Thanks.
appreciate your spending time with me today.
Same. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon.